The Zone offers no forgiveness for errors, and it hates cocky rookies even more. Yet, what if a newcomer enters the perimeter knowing more than the hardened vets? We are back in 2011. The Zone is split by a mysterious barrier. Enter Mark, a stalker with no past but a clear goal: to break into a place closed off to all living things. Who is this guy, and why does the Zone seem to make way for him? Let's dive in. In a derelict house within the Cordon, the seasoned guide Bergamot is conducting a harsh briefing for 3 rookies. He drills into them that here, in the Zone, urban rules hold no sway. There are no courts and no police. The only way to survive is to engage one's brain, for a single mistake costs a life. The 3 novices, dressed in worn rookie jackets, listen intently, especially when Bergamot emphasizes that all bookish theory vanishes the moment one faces a gun barrel or the snout of a mutant. Just as the group prepares to move out, an enigmatic stalker named Mifuna appears in the doorway. He grimly warns the guide, advising him not to head out with the rookie. Bergamot explodes in anger, reminding Mifuna who is in charge, and physically shoves the unsolicited advisor out of his way. The team departs on their raid. Leading the formation is Bergamot himself, armed with a unique mirror-finish Kalashnikov. Behind him follows Mark, a mysterious intern responsible for detecting anomalies. Next is Auric, young and diligent, assigned to combat security. Bringing up the rear is Plaston, a sullen hard luck case. They move along the fence separating the Zone from the perimeter, a military-guarded line where any attempt to break through is met with fire from automatic turrets. Bergamot follows a familiar route, feeling the weight of age and the fatigue of endless treks. Yet he remains vigilant, testing the path ahead with bolts. Suddenly, Mark commands a halt. He unceremoniously pushes the experienced guide aside and tosses a bolt into empty space. It ricochets loudly off an invisible barrier. The intern has discovered a deadly anomaly cluster, a springboard hidden inside a rare Oblivion anomaly, which renders everything around it invisible. Bergamot, whose detector remained silent, is stunned that the rookie can see hidden threats and knows that an Oblivion possesses multiple vortex centers that must be struck simultaneously. However, the confrontation is cut short by a shriek from the undergrowth. The group is surrounded by Chimeras, unnaturally small ones, suggesting these apex predators have begun breeding right here in the relatively safe Cordon. 3 beasts take up positions, one in the bushes, one on the flank, and a third in a tree directly above Plaston. A firefight erupts. Auric and Bergamot open fire on the first Chimera, but the pack reacts with lightning speed. The predators knock the guide off his feet and maul his legs, inflicting excruciating pain. Plaston, attempting to return fire, takes a fatal step backward directly into the invisible Oblivion. A powerful snowy vortex hurls him to the ground, where he goes limp like a sack of bones. In this critical moment, Mark, having scrambled up a tree, performs the impossible. He simultaneously throws 6 bolts at different points of the anomaly. The vortex collapses into a singularity and explodes in a shower of icy shards. The residual anomalous cloud engulfs one of the Chimeras, compressing it into a glowing artifact. As the final Chimera attacks Mark, he kicks the fresh artifact toward it and shoots through the object with his pistol. The bullet, accelerated exponentially by the anomalous energy, vaporizes the monster's head, turning flesh into steam. Grabbing Auric's rifle, Mark finishes off the first wounded Chimera by driving it into the springboard, which launches the carcass over the fence, directly into the annihilating fire of the military turrets. When silence falls, it turns out Plaston is alive. His backpack cushioned the anomaly's impact. Bergamot's wounds are painful, but not fatal. As the Stalkers tend to one another, Mark explains that the artifact he created, Oblivion Lost, has the property of monstrously accelerating any object, which allowed him to obliterate the Chimera with a single shot. Realizing he can no longer lead due to his mauled legs, Bergamot hands command over to Mark. Yet, he laughs with relief. His legendary statistic remains unbroken. He still hasn't lost a single man. The team, supporting the wounded, hobbles toward the bar. But at the very end, Mark turns and looks through his binoculars. In the distance, a massive dark shadow sits motionless, watching them leave. The adult female Chimera, mother of the slain brood. The morning of March 4th dawned exceptionally clear and sunny, as if the zone had decided to forget its gloomy nature for a single day and succumb to the influence of the outside world. Nature responded in its own way. Mutated trees turned their leaves toward the light. A boar sat in the bushes, defying its instincts to gaze up at the clouds. And nearby, a blind dog, catching the scent of soy sausage wafting from the military checkpoint, decided to risk its life for food, driven by hunger. Yet the zone lived its own hidden life. Trees, connected by a deep root system, transmitted danger signals to one another, warning boars hiding in the roots of approaching humans, while somewhere in the forest, a unique butterfly spawned by radiation took flight toward the north. The main events unfold at the Cordon bar, located in the basement of a ruined vehicle depot, ATP, currently guarded by fighters from the Clear Sky faction. Inside, the usual bustle prevails. At the entrance, the weaponsmith Lapsha is stripping down firearms, while the most important man in the southern zone, the traitor Sidorovich, sits enthroned in his cubicle. A stout man with a bushy mustache, he maintains contact with the outside world, buys up loot, sells equipment, and is rumored to even offer assassination services for unwanted individuals, all while flashing a Father Frost smile at every visitor. Behind the counter stands the bartender Spill, a strange Hare Krishna devotee with a perpetually surprised expression, who feeds stalkers canned goods and the occasional hot chicken. Various groups occupy the tables. In the corner sit serious fighters from duty, while closer to the entrance, two veterans, Truba and Plotnik, drink beer at the expense of rookies and spin yarns about the mysterious barrier in the Red Forest, an impassable dark wall from which mutants emerge. However, the most critical conversation is taking place at the bar, where a tipsy Orek is arguing with the guide Mifuna. Mifuna is trying to convince the lad that his new friend, Mark, is not a hero, but a highly suspicious individual best avoided. The guide lays out strange facts. Mark, while still a rookie, refused Sidorovich's initial task to retrieve a pseudo-dogtail, yet the very next day brought in a rare moonlight artifact, something impossible to find in the Cordon. Mark claimed he found it in an electro-anomaly inside an abandoned house. When Sidorovich's men investigated the location, a discharged anomaly was indeed found there, though none had existed previously. Mifuna continues to press his point, revealing that Mark did not arrive in the zone empty-handed. His backpack emitted such powerful and strange radiation that it fried the scanning equipment at the entrance, yet later, the contents of the pack vanished without a trace. Furthermore, Mark brought a guitar with him, considered a bad omen among stalkers and the mark of a dead man walking, but the guitar too has disappeared. Mifuna is convinced Mark is simply a lucky fool who came here as if on a picnic and advises Orek to ditch his partner. However, Orek, remembering how Mark saved the group from the Chimeras, refuses to believe the worst. He declares that Mark has shown him what a real human being looks like, and leaves to hunt for artifacts. Shortly after, two stalkers from the garbage, Kanta and Variag, enter the bar. They tell Mifuna and Plotnik about a strange encounter on the road. They crossed paths with a rookie armed only with a pistol who behaved boldly, but that wasn't the most surprising part. Kanta possesses a highly sensitive detector, and upon meeting this lad, the device began beeping furiously, reacting to the human as if he were an anomaly, even though the surrounding area was clear. The rookie headed off toward where the stalker Borland lives, and the veterans concluded the detector had simply glitched or reacted to a nearby monster. The chapter ends with Mifuna connecting the dots, under his breath that it was no monster the detector saw. While the veterans and rookies at the Cordon bar picked apart the mystery of Mark, guessing at his destination and the secrets hidden in his backpack, the subject of their speculation was already approaching the garbage. There, amidst the radioactive hills, a man whose name was also whispered reverently across bar tables was preparing to take his shot. The legendary sniper, Borland. Borland lies atop a mountain of industrial waste, in a spot so radioactive that a Geiger counter should be screaming. He has been prepping this hideout for a week, pumping his system full of drugs and lining his belt with fireball artifacts to buy himself 20 minutes against death. His target is Lavash, a ruthless marauder leader who has united the bandits of the garbage and the Dark Valley. The Duty faction provided the perfect bait by blowing up a jeep with decoy bodies. When Lavash arrives at the scene and accepts a sycophantic kiss on the hand from a subordinate, Borland, checking his photo one last time, smoothly squeezes the trigger of his Ventores. The chieftain drops dead. The sniper immediately discards the expensive but now lethally radioactive rifle, slides down the hill, and sprints to a cache where he quickly changes into a clean suit and arms himself with an abacan and a pistol. However, a quiet exit is not in the cards. The Warriors of the Zone, Lavash's elite guard, a gang of crazed bikers who tear through the zone on high-speed motorcycles, despising anomalies, are on the hunt. Borland is forced to hide in a concrete pipe within a ravine, right next to a deadly witch's jelly anomaly. One of the bikers stops directly above him and tosses a grenade blindly. The stalker manages to dive out a split second before the explosion and opens fire, but the marauder escapes to call for reinforcements. Realizing he is being encircled, Borland breaks out onto the open plain. When two pursuers catch up to him, he stages a performance. Feigning exhaustion, he raises his hands with his rifle, seemingly surrendering. Letting the enemies close to within 10 meters, he suddenly screams, "Fuel leak!" Instinctively, the bikers glance down at their tanks. That single second is enough. Borland draws his pistol, guns down both men, finishes the survivor with a knife, and, seizing a trophy Uzi, hijacks one of the motorcycles. A deadly race toward the Cordon border begins. 4 more warriors are hot on his tail. Here, the stalker's past is revealed. He is not military, but a professional race car driver. Utilizing his skills, he maneuvers under crossfire, dodging bullets, but at the very exit of the garbage, the zone betrays him. A new anomaly, not yet marked on any map, blocks his path. Swerving to avoid collision, Borland flies into the vehicle graveyard territory and crashes at full speed into a rusted observation tower. The impact is horrific, but the stalker manages to hang on to the railing. He guns down one pursuer in midair, but the remaining 3 pin him down from below. It is a stalemate. Borland is trapped on a crumbling platform, unable to descend, out of grenades, while from below, they hold him at gunpoint, methodically shooting through the floorboards. At that moment, a figure in a rookie jacket appears at the edge of the graveyard. It is Mark, whose reputation in the Cordon bar was well earned. He acts with calm, terrifying professionalism. He pulls out a grenade, inserts it inside a strange artifact made of wire and foil, and tosses it under the tower. An explosion of monstrous force erupts, far exceeding the TNT equivalent. The earth shudders, the tower sways violently, and hellish flames engulf the ground below. When the smoke clears, the three marauders and their bikes have been obliterated, and the grass is scorched to ash. Mark approaches the tower, introduces himself to the stunned Borland, and tosses him the dead bandit's Uzi. But the respite is short. The roar of fresh engines cuts through the air. Mark vanishes into the labyrinth of rusted cars, while Borland realizes he cannot stay up high. Noticing the explosion has twisted the tower's supports, he recalls his parkour skills. He vaults over the railing, slides down the dents in the metal, and lands squarely on the back of an arriving motorcyclist. A brutal hand-to-hand fight ensues. Borland takes a heavy blow to the ear, but manages to hamstring his opponent with a knife. However, the last, sixth marauder immediately tackles him. He knocks the stalker off his feet and locks him in a chokehold. Borland gasps for air, losing consciousness, unable to pry open the helmeted enemy's grip. Salvation comes from the heavens. Mark appears atop the fuselage of an old Mi-6 helicopter. He sees the struggle, but he cannot fire a burst. The risk of hitting his ally is too high. Coldly, Mark detaches his magazine, leaving a single round in the chamber. He takes a running start, jumps onto a sagging rotor blade, uses it as a springboard, and, while soaring over the combatants, fires one precise shot vertically downward. The bullet pierces the marauder's helmet, killing him instantly. Borland, greedily gulping air, thanks his savior. Two legends, one established, the other just being born, stand amidst the smoking carnage. They gather their gear and depart, leaving the corpses of the warriors of the zone to feed the mutants. After the two stalkers left the vehicle graveyard, leaving the corpses of the warriors of the zone behind, they retreated to a safe distance. Borland, still wondering about the identity of his savior, tried to repay Mark for his help by offering him 2 fireball artifacts, but the rookie refused, stating he needed nothing. The sniper then decided to rid himself of the intrusive companion and harshly demanded not to be followed. But Mark kept pace, admitting that he needed to reach the very center of the zone and was looking for a partner. Borland's reaction was instantaneous. He punched Mark in the solar plexus, tackled him to the grass, and pinned him down, accusing him of stalking him and acting like a naive fool riding on dumb luck. However, Mark managed to break free, landed several counter-strikes, and leveled a trophy Fort 12 pistol at the veteran, surprising Borland considerably. Seizing the moment, the sniper regained the initiative, knocked the weapon away with a sweeping kick, and advised the lad to get out of the zone while he was still in one piece. But Mark stopped him with a single phrase. He claimed to know how to pass through the legendary barrier, the impenetrable anomalous wall in the Red Forest. To prove he wasn't insane, Mark asked Borland to turn on his anomaly detector. The device in the sniper's hands nearly exploded with static, reacting violently to the contents of the rookie's backpack. Mark revealed a collection of the rarest and most unknown artifacts, asserting they originated from beyond the barrier, even though he himself had never been there. Realizing he was looking at a walking gold mine, Borland trained Mark's own pistol on him and ordered him to surrender so he could be taken to the traitor Sidorovich for interrogation. At that moment, the tables turned for a third time. Behind Borland's back, the bolt of a rifle clicked. It was Orek, the young stalker who had stealthily crept up to protect Mark. Borland, appreciating the irony of the situation, he, a professional, held at gunpoint by two rookies, calmly laid down his weapon and lay on the grass. The conflict was diffused, and the trio moved to negotiations. Borland, impressed by Orek's skills and Mark's confidence, agreed to hear the plan. Using a stick, Mark drew a map on the ground. To disable the barrier and enter Pripyat, he needed to gather parts of a secret scientific report hidden in 3 underground laboratories: X-17 at the Agroprom, X-18 in the Dark Valley, and X-16 at Lake Yantar. Mark introduced himself as a former scientist whose goal was to understand the essence of what was happening in the zone. Borland, giving a skeptical snort at the former scientist claim, nevertheless agreed to the venture but laid down strict conditions. He would be the unquestioned leader of the group. His orders were not to be discussed, and the rookies had to acquire proper gear by morning. Furthermore, the sniper announced he would bring 2 more proven professionals on the expedition to avoid babysitting the youth. Having agreed to meet at dawn, the stalkers were about to disperse when a terrifying roar echoed from beyond the hills. On the nearest rise, a massive chimera appeared. It was the very same female whose offspring Mark had killed in the Cordon. The beast did not attack. It slowly approached the group and stopped 15 meters away, fixing its unblinking green eyes on Mark. Orek fell to his knees in terror. Borland gripped a useless knife, and Mark, feeling his insides turn to ice, forced himself to hold the beast's gaze. The demonstration of power ended as abruptly as it began. The chimera bared its fangs, let out a final roar, turned, and regally retreated into the thicket, leaving the humans alive. After the chimera vanished into the thicket and Borland departed, having agreed to a dawn rendezvous, night descended upon the Cordon. The full moon stirred ancient wolfish instincts within the Chernobyl dogs, and a coordinated chorus of howls echoed over the forest. Mark and Orek decided against seeking shelter in the bunkers, choosing instead to camp under the open sky near a rusted, derailed electric locomotive. For the Cordon was considered the only place in the zone where one could afford such a risk, or even kindle a fire. While Orek tended to the flames, Mark began a detailed inventory of the gear purchased at the Cordon bar from Clear Sky in exchange for artifacts. His primary acquisition was a new Freedom Faction protective suit, allegedly reinforced with zirconium elements. The suit was equipped with built-in night vision goggles and a multitude of pockets, which the stalker immediately stuffed with bolts and chocolate. On his belt sat a detector, a knife, and a hydration system with a drinking tube. Mark paid special attention to a strange flask lined with crystal, containing a certain semi-liquid mass. He checked it for cracks before burying it deep in his backpack. Next, he sorted through his artifacts: a Night Star for bullet protection, 3 Oblivion Losts for projectile acceleration, a Thorn to scrub radiation, healing mica, and the dangerous Dementor, which enhanced cognitive function at the cost of severe depression. Ensuring Orek was busy preparing dinner, Mark retrieved his most secret possession, a small black crystal wrapped in white cloth. The stone was dormant, and after a moment of admiration, the stalker stashed it at the very bottom of his pack. Meanwhile, Orek, overjoyed to be part of a real operation, and having contributed his own 2 jellyfish artifacts to the food budget, was dreaming aloud of cold kvass. Mark, however, sank into grim reflection on how 5 years of training had purged his humanity, turning him into a combat machine. He recalled exactly how he had killed the marauders at the tower. He had placed a grenade inside a dough artifact, which directed the shockwave horizontally sparing Borland's life above the epicenter. His thoughts were interrupted by a rustle from the darkness. The stalkers grabbed their weapons, but the guest was no enemy. It was a stalker by the nickname Senator, a man in a standard trench coat, known in the Cordon as a local philosopher. He asked to warm himself by the fire and, like a magician, produced a 1-liter bottle of real, cold kvass from his pocket, treating the astonished Auric. Over dinner, Senator initiated a strange conversation, immediately revealing that he saw right through Mark. He stated that Mark would never acclimate to the zone because he hadn't come here to live, but to find peace or death. The guest unerringly deduced that Mark was driven not by greed, but by a heavy heart, pain for a loved one harmed during the second explosion at the CNPP. Shaken by how easily the stranger had unlocked his secrets, Mark could not withstand the tension and walked into the forest to hide his rising emotions. Senator silently followed. In the woods, pressing his forehead against a tree, Mark confessed that in 5 years of solitude, he had opened up to no one. Senator then asked to join the group and be taken to the barrier. When asked, why, he answered enigmatically, "I want to go home," explaining that there he would be closer to home. He offered his services as someone who knew how to feel the zone, a talent stalkers call shamanism, and promised to ensure that Mark, in his pursuit of the goal, did not completely turn into a soulless machine. Realizing he needed such a man to maintain his sanity, Mark agreed to discuss Senator's candidacy with Borland. They returned to the fire, where Auric was already sleeping soundly. Senator sent Mark to rest, taking the night watch for himself. For the first time in a long while, Mark fell asleep with a sense of rightness, entrusting his safety to this strange but wise companion. The zone has no love for those who rush. So let's take a pause here. We've barely scratched the surface regarding Mark's powers, and the real challenges are waiting for him. This is only a piece of the full tale. So keep your PDAs handy. The best is yet to come.